I would have never thought at the beginning of the year that I would go from a 687 credit score to a 733 credit score in just a matter of 5-6 months. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, my name is Luce. I love to document my adventures from hiking mountain peaks to traveling around the world, all while working on my financial health.
Action.
If any of that resonates with you, please feel free to stick around and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this content. As promised last week, I wanted to really walk you through the steps that I took to improve my financial health this year. If you haven't watched the previous two videos, I'll leave them linked in the description below. But basically, at the beginning of this year, I set myself the goal to pay off more than 60% of my debt on that year. So at the beginning of this year, so in January 2024, my debt was standing at a $36,000. One second, I'll tell you. Just over $36,000. And I really wanted to pay off 60% of that by the end of this year. And I found myself in a way where I didn't really know what to do anymore. But let me take you back a little bit through the journey of how I got into that debt initially and how I found my way slowly out of it. I also wanted to comment that I am not a financial advisor. This is just my own personal journey. I will share this with you just so that you have a reference, because when I was trying to start my debt-free journey, I did not know where to start. And I felt a little helpless, and I was trying to get as much information as I could to make the right decision, but I didn't know anyone that could share their own experience that I could learn from. And so hopefully my experience will give you some sort of guidance and the steps that you could possibly take, and so that you can make an informed decision that better suits your circumstances. So feel free to take whatever is helpful for you, and whatever is not, just leave it off the table. I hope it is helpful for you. So with that out of the way, I wanted to give you just a recap on how I ended up getting debt and what kind of debt I had. So student debt basically is what got me here, and a lot of it had to do because I could not afford to go to college, and it had been a very long coming dream of mine to go to college and get a degree. Since I was little, since I can remember, I can just still remember the picture of me telling my dad that I wanted to go to college, and I didn't know, I didn't know what it entailed to go to college, but I knew I wanted to do that. And I also knew that that would make my parents really proud. And so I think sometimes I did question myself if I was doing it for myself or for my parents. But at the same time, I knew I really wanted it. Sometimes I felt like giving up, in the sense that it was very hard to sustain myself because I did not have any support from family to go to college, and I was also not living with anyone in my family, so it was really just me. And sometimes I felt like I didn't have any other option than to give up. But that was actually not an option. Giving up was never an option. And so when the time got hard to pay for college, to even have enough money to eat or transportation, I resorted to my credit cards. And it was not a smart move at all. I just did not understand credit cards, and I also did not understand student loans, subsidized student loans. And I also, from experience, anecdotal experience. I remember one time one of my teachers in high school had mentioned that they were still paying off student debt. And I remember, for me, that teacher looked older. I was in high school, so I think that at that time anybody that is not in high school, looks much older and mature than you. And so I thought that I would, if I got a student loan, that I was going to be paying that forever, and I didn't want to be there. For some reason, and because I didn't understand credit cards or how the interest rate on credit cards work, I thought that paying off any student fees, tuition, and all of that would be better off to be paid off with a credit card than a student loan. And so I did that. I did it without knowing any better, and soon enough, as you may know, credit cards have a really high interest rate. And so I accumulated a really good chunk of debt on my credit cards. Sometimes I couldn't afford rent, and so I used my credit card. It was a really tough moment, I think. I guess my only support was really credit cards. And I held on to the belief that once I was done with my degree and I could get a better job, better paying job, I would be able to pay it off right back. And in the way it is true, it's been true. The type of degree that I got is an engineering degree, and I've also had an experience working in the company that I'm currently working on. And so I was able to leverage that degree to get a better paying salary. And that's also one of the reasons why I've been able to make such good progress on my debt payoff journey. At the end of the day, I got myself into debt because I had this huge dream of going to college. And although I was not making good enough money, in a way it was, or to the government, it seemed like I could afford to pay my own tuition. Even though I could barely afford to pay living expenses like rent, food, and transportation. And I was not able to get any financial aid from like FAFSA or all of those other options that are out there for people with lower income. I ended up getting a student loan finally towards the end of my degree because I was so close to getting my degree done. But I was also like starting to learn more about finances, and I did realize that if I continued to pay with my credit card, that money was just, keep accumulating, like interest compounding into more and more debt that was going to get harder to pay off. That is how I ended up getting into debt. There's more details on a blog post that I have on my website if you want to check it out. I'll also leave it on the description below. But at the beginning of the year, I was getting tired of seeing how much my debt was not, well, let's say, I was taking 2 steps forward in paying off my debt and 1 step back, because the interest that was on those credit cards was quite high. Last year, actually, so 2023, was when I was just desperate because I kept seeing my debt just like, I would make huge payments, as much as I could towards my debt, and I did not see any dent into it. And so I was becoming quite desperate because the interest rate was so high, and the money that I was making at the time as well was not enough for me to pay more than I could without like just, my living expenses are quite basic. The things that I spend the most money on is travel and paying off debt. And so I cut off everything that I could that I didn't need, and I still was not making a dent into paying off my debt. And so I was a bit desperate. I even thought about getting a loan against myself on my 401k, which is, I think it's like one of those last resource type of things. Luckily I didn't do it, and so after being skeptical for a very long time, I applied for a balance transfer. And so I was able to transfer a great majority of one of my credit cards balance that was, I think had a 28% APR at that time. And so what the balance transfer allows you to do is move a certain amount of your balance into usually a 18 or 12 month zero interest rate, and so that allows you to get a break into the balance that you have. So that money is sitting there waiting for you to pay it off, and you can continue to pay it off without paying any interest on it. So I started by doing that, and that actually didn't help as much as I was hoping, but at least I was not paying any extra interest. So I continued that journey well into the beginning of 2024. I knew that by I knew that by April 2024, if I continued making those aggressive payments, then I would be able to pay that off completely. At the beginning of the year, I knew that I wanted to pay off 60% of my debt, 60% of the 36,000 that I owe. And I broke down the amount per month that I needed to pay to make my 60% goal. And it was just a simple, breakdown of this 36,000. It didn't account for any of the interest that the debt would accumulate. I knew that if I got more into the weeds of it, it would just be very overwhelming and probably would not give me the energy that I needed to have that momentum of paying. And so the momentum, I got it as I saw my debt payoff line declining. So seeing my debt payoff going down. So slowly but surely, I was making progress towards paying that off. So at the beginning of the year in January, my credit score was a 687. Then in February was 689. In March, it was 692. Keep in mind that I do check my FICO score in all of the bank accounts that I have, as well as on Xperia. And I just take an average of all the 4 different sites and where I look my credit score at, and then that's the credit score that I'm reporting right now. As I was saying, by March it was 692, and so when I was able to finally pay off my credit card with a 28% interest rate, my credit improved to a 705. At that moment, I felt a lot of relief and a lot of, I don't know, it was a combination of relief, but also of a sort of like anxiety, I guess. I felt like I had a small window of opportunity to be able to make that 702 give me or open other doors that I've been waiting for my credit to improve. So after the balance transfer at 28% was complete and paid off, I wanted to take a similar approach with the remainder of my debt, which was the largest debt, and it had a 21% of interest rate. And one of the ways that I thought about, or after doing some research, and I couldn't do another balance transfer. I didn't want to do another balance transfer because it didn't seem like they would give me that much money to be able to transfer out. And it was like 20,000 something of debt. And I basically wanted to take advantage because I thought I had a really small window of opportunity after my credit score improved to 705. I applied for a Sofi personal loan at 8.6%, and at the moment it felt skeptical. I was so afraid to make the jump. I had like just a breakdown in thinking like how much it was, what if I was making a mistake, and yeah, but I did it. I read everything. It seemed like it was the best thing to do, because otherwise I will be paying a 21% compared to an 8.6% with the Sofi personal loan. So I did it. I moved 15,000 of that into the personal loan, and it's crazy because I think it was just over $20,000, and it's possible that I could have moved everything to the personal loan so that now everything was at an 8.6% instead of having $15,000 with 8.6 and $5,000 with 21%. But in a way, it gave me some sort of fake security, thinking that if anything were to go wrong with the Sofi loan, that at least I know how the credit card operated. And the Sofi loan, I was so skeptical, I was so afraid, and I mean, to this day, it has worked wonders, because compared to how much interest I was paying, or I would have been paying with the credit card, to how much I am paying now with the Sofi loan, it's a huge difference. And anyway, so yes, after this is going too long, but after I paid off, after I transferred a huge balance, so after I transferred $15,000 of my credit card debt into a personal loan at a 8.6%, my credit score improved even more. It improved to a 710, and this is again an average of 4 different places where I check. And so I felt relieved, but also I felt like it was giving me the opportunity to go even further. And what I ended up doing, I really wanted to get a Venture X card, because it's, I think, one of the best travels, if not the best travel credit cards out there. And at this point in my journey, I have learned how credit cards work. And I was so eager to have the opportunity to get one of those cards on my hand so I could make the most of my travels. And yeah, because now I know how it works, how to use it. But I knew that with the credit score that I had at the beginning of the year, and even until April, it was not very likely that I would get approved for a credit card like that. And so towards the end of May and beginning of June, I was thinking about and just waging what I could do to be able to get this credit card. And some of the ways that you could also improve your credit score is you call out the credit cards that you currently have open, and you tell them to give you a credit increase, not for you to use, but just so that it lowers your credit utilization. And that's what I did also in 2023. And that's what I was, after moving my huge credit card debt into a personal loan, it made a very big dent into how much I owe it to the credit card. And so that improved my credit utilization as well. So all those little things can add up to help your credit score improve. And so I did that, and mine improved greatly, that I was able to apply, and they gave me a really huge, and I got approved, and they gave me a huge credit utilization limit. With that, I was able to improve my credit score even more. It improved to a 733, which was crazy. I would have never thought at the beginning of the year that I would go from a 687 credit score to a 733 credit score in just a matter of 5-6 months. It was crazy to me. And even though I felt like this was going to be short-lived, it seemed to just stay that way. And yes, there's some fluctuations here and there, but overall there was an improvement throughout the rest of the year. And as of the recording of this video, my credit score average is at 799. So every month after that, I kept improving by 5 points, by 10 points. Sometimes it would come down 2 or 3 points, or sometimes 10 points, and depending on how much credit I had used. And also, let me say, the reason I also decided to get a Venture X card was because I was going to get a really good introductory points offer. And I knew I had a lot of spending coming up because I had some work trips to do. I had some travel to do to Portugal. I knew that based on my expenses, because my tracker, according to my tracker, and then all the expenses that I do per month in over 3 months, because that offer is like you have to spend like $4,000 during 3 months. I went back to my tracker, I summarized the list of my expenses and times that by 3, and I realized that I would easily be able to meet my spending goal to be able to get those 75,000 points. And I went for it, I got approved, and it's actually one of my favorite cards. I leave my referral link below if you like to. And taking advantage of that momentum, I went and applied for an Amex card. Again, at this point, I have learned how to use my credit card. I use them for the things that I needed the most, for food and for travel and transportation and things like that. So there's a set goal that you need to spend in a certain amount of time to be able to get the offer. And I was offered 90,000 points on the Amex. And so yeah, again, I knew I had some work travel to do. Even when I didn't have any work travel and we did have some like team outings and such, I offered to pay with my card and get a reimbursement so that I could meet that goal. And so that's how it went for those 2 credit cards that I got this year. And with those 2, I was even able to improve my credit score even more. And so yeah, that is how basically I went from a 687 score to a 799 in 12 months. All together while working towards my debt payoff journey. So the credit score here in the US is one of the major things that allows you to have certain leverage in things. So for example, if you have a really good credit score, you may be able to get a better interest rate than someone that doesn't have such a good credit score. Basically, credit score moves everything here. Because even to get a card or to apply for an apartment, even to get a job, sometimes they ask you to run, to approve a credit score check. So with that said, having a really good and healthy credit score is very helpful in the things that you're able to do on a day-to-day basis. And the way that the credit score is calculated is, 1, the payment history. So if you've done on-time payments all throughout the time that you've given credit. 2 is the length of that credit. So how long have you had that credit for? And the longer you have it, the better it is. The 3rd factor is your credit utilization. So if you're given $1,000 of credit, for example, and you are maxed out, that is definitely going to affect your credit because you're using 100% of the credit that they're giving you. And so what the advice is to be between 10 and 30% of credit utilization to not impact your score that bad. The 4th one is any new type of credit. So anytime that you apply for a credit card and you have a hard pull on your credit score, that is going to affect your overall credit score. And the credit card checks or pulls, I guess you would call it, a hard pull, stays in your record for at least 2 years. So it's a bit of it, if you're thinking about getting a new house or something that is going to require you to have a really good credit, it's better to wait on getting a new credit card or a new loan, on like a car loan. And that actually brings me to the 5th factor, which is credit mix. So if you have personal loan, car loans, student loans, a revolving credit line, which is like credit cards, and I forget what's another example, well, mortgage. So that sort of shows that you have a sort of healthy amount of credit mix. And so those are the 5 factors that contribute to your credit score. And moving or improving in any one of these is going to be of benefit. But the ones that have the most impact is one of the main ones is that you make your payments on time. even if you are struggling to pay off the credit card completely, like the balance at the end of the month, make sure that you do at least the minimum payment so that that is completely done, because that is going to impact your credit score by a lot. So make sure to always pay your credit card, even if it's not the full amount, so minimum amount. When I was struggling at the beginning of, like, in the last few years, and I couldn't make the statement balance, I was for sure at least making a minimum payment and then just working towards paying more than that minimum payment. So that's one. And the second one is also your history. For this one, you don't have much say if you just started to use credit, but with that, it's just going to be time using credit. And so if you started young and you have one of those cheap credit cards that are like zero annual fees and you have zero benefits, basically, do not ever close it, because that's your longest credit line, and so that's going to hugely impact your credit score. So try to not have any debt on it and just have it open, don't close it. And the other one is, like I said, the credit utilization. Make sure that you are always under that 30%, so between 10 and 30%, so that you kind of seem like a reliable person to the banks. You're not a high risk borrower. So just to recap, the year before, so 2023, I started to work towards my debt payoff journey. And so I started to find ways that I could make my interest go down to zero or as low as possible, so that every payment that I was making towards my debt would have an impact. So it would make a dent on my debt. Because otherwise, the high interest rates were just eating me alive. And so the step one that I did was actually I called my banks to see if they could give me some extra credit utilization so that I could improve my credit score. And after that was done, I was able to apply for a balance transfer, because if I don't have a good credit score, I would probably be rejected for a balance transfer. But that once that was improved a little more, I was able to make a balance transfer so that that money that I had a balance on didn't have any interest for a certain amount of time. I made sure to pay that off. So at the beginning of 2024, I set myself the goal to pay off 60% of my total debt since at the beginning of the year. And by end of April, I was already done paying that off. And so my credit score improved even better. So at that moment, I applied for a Sofi personal loan to move the largest balance of my credit card of 21% to my personal loan with Sofi at 8.6%. And so after that, I focused really heavily on paying off completely my credit card with 21% interest rate. And that has been done. So now, since October, so since beginning of November, I've just been completely paying off my personal loan and my student loan, which has a 2.5% interest rate. So I've just been focusing on paying my personal loan with Sofi at an 8.6%, as aggressive as I can. And so hopefully by the end of May next year, so 2025, one of my major goals is to pay off my debt completely. I'm gonna have to assess how I'm going to break that down, but for that, join me on my next video so that I can show you exactly how much I need to pay off, how much I need to pay off each month to be able to meet my goal. And yeah, come with me, join me in writing some 2025 financial goals as well as personal goals. If you enjoyed this kind of videos, let me know in the comments below so I can make more of this personal finance videos. Otherwise, I'll see you in my travel videos. If you have any questions, let me know, leave it in the comments. I'll leave a link to the tracker as well so that you can look into that if you're interested. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.